This video is made possible by Backbone.
This is gonna be weirder than usual.
I didn't realize when starting the game, but they meant this very literally. When I played Control for the first time back in 2019, I went in completely blind and had no idea what this game had in store for me. I was expecting a horror game based on the first 20 minutes, and oh boy was I wrong. The devs describe it as a new weird genre of game, using both horror and sci-fi elements while twisting them to something that just doesn't quite feel right. Remedy is no stranger to emotional story-driven games, and they delivered such a unique, interesting, and thought-provoking experience with this one. The front entrance to the oldest house really just looks like a normal building in New York City, and it's a perfect disguise for the crazy shit contained inside. There's so much symbolism hidden in plain sight all over the oldest house. The emblem bears a lot of resemblance to Polaris. The connection is obvious now, but I had no idea the bigger role to play later. The game loves dangling little hints in front of your face, and it only adds to the mystery.
Like in that movie, what is it called? The prison movie.
The movie she's talking about is Shawshank Redemption, and some of its themes can be seen reflected in Control, namely the idea of freedom and having control of our own future. Jessie is constantly at odds with how to deal with her newfound position as the director, but she keeps moving forward through the hardships and becomes a better person because of it. I feel like these portraits hint at Ati's hidden identity. There's Director Trench and Dr. Darling, both very important members of the FBC, but then we've got the janitor. Obviously, sanitation is important, but it's weird. Given his role in the story, though, he's the most important person on that wall. I love noticing little details that seem obvious now, when I never thought twice about it my first time through.
Janitor is a friendly face in my book.
Better than somebody with no face at all.
Either she said that out loud, or dude can read minds. Just more hints to the bigger role he plays. Weirdest job interview ever. The board is one of the biggest mysteries of Control. We never learn what exactly it or they are, other than they're essentially Jess's boss. Can't even get away from corporate on the astral plane.
Right after the pyramid spoke to me, and it was just noise, and I understood every word.
Not even 20 minutes into this game, and I have about 269 questions nice, which really made me want to play the game more, unraveling all the juicy mysteries of the oldest house.
Things are broken down outside.
By the look of things? No, it is not. Remedy wanted to make sure the initial service weapon felt impactful and wanted all of its forms to be viable throughout the entire game, and I think they did well in that regard. My favorites were Pierce and Shatter, but I still found myself returning to the original form throughout the game for its versatility. But I'll talk more about the service weapon in a bit. But before we get to that, I want to talk about what playing this game did to my spine. If you've got back problems and can be extremely lazy like me, then the Backbone is perfect for us. The Backbone is an accessory that converts your phone or Android into a portable gaming console. It's the one-stop, pocketable shop for all of our gaming-addicted needs. I'm super tall, and sitting in an office chair all day makes my back hurt. So having the option to stretch this thing out to fit any length of phone and snap it on with no hassle, then letting me just lay in bed and play games has been amazing. And for longer sessions through the night when my partner is next to me sleeping, you can charge your phone through the Backbone, and it has the super rare coveted headphone jack, so no bothering the misses. And I know we all hate having 18 different launchers on our PCs for all of our games, so subscribing to Backbone Plus unlocks the Backbone app, which keeps all your games in one place with a seamless console-style experience, along with editing clips you might have saved, seeing friends online, and picking up exactly where you left off previously. I used to just Bluetooth a regular controller to my phone to game on, but this is just way too convenient and perfect of a package that I can't help but recommend it enough. So get your bum off that office chair into somewhere more comfortable and get your own Backbone at playbackbone.com or use the link in the description below. Jessie is confident and unafraid, but she's still just as confused about what the f is happening as I am. I'd be pretty chipped out too if a dead guy told me to go make a phone call. The early game is tough, especially on a first playthrough, but as you gain powers and a few level ups, you start to realize the absolute whirlwind of death and destruction you can become. Control points act as our bonfires of sorts. They're used for leveling up, fast travel, and most importantly, respawning. The game took a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls and Metroidvanias, especially with the world and exploration. The interconnectedness of the level design, countless shortcuts, and environmental storytelling is on par with anything else in the genre. Jessie's outfit was meant to contrast that of old Bureau members. It's very casual and well worn, while the FBC uniforms are very rigid and clean looking, emphasizing that she's from the outside, not just visiting like she puts it, but bringing in new blood. It's the old guys at the top messing everything up, so it's up to her to fix things. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
I love it. This is f***ing unbelievable.
Hey, chill. He just let me in for a job interview.
The Bureau came in and covered the whole thing up.
Standard government procedure.
Maybe he can talk to you more clearly through that.
Pope is observant, knowledgeable, and inquisitive. She's a great help for both the player and Jesse to understand a bit more about what's going on here. And the same symbol from the lobby is also on the HRAs. There's so many hints to Polaris/Hedron's role in the story, and I can't believe I never noticed them through 2 whole playthroughs. No matter where you are in the Bureau, the hiss can be heard chanting, whispering, and sometimes screaming. It's super unsettling and makes it feel like you're surrounded, even in an empty room. Cleansing control points never gets old. The shifting walls and hallways are just so satisfying and gives the feeling that the building is alive. Dealing with objects of power can be dangerous, but the rewards you get from cleansing them are well worth the trouble. It's usually new abilities, but we'll talk more about them later. The environments seem like they were pulled right out of the 1950s. Furniture and desks heavy and uses of weird and muted colors. Remedy does a great job making everything outside of the paranormal stuff feel very mundane and normal, making the strange even stranger. And using the time period of the 50s reinforces the game's main themes of freedom and control, reflected by the many movements against social injustices during the time, and also the Red Scare.
They can fly now.
They fly now!
Most of the bosses act as introductions to different enemy types than being bosses in the traditional sense, giving us a beefed up version of enemies we'll see later. These funny little dudes are called Hiss Elevated. Get it? Because they blow. Anyway, they are always one of the biggest threats in the room. Staying still in this game can be a death sentence, and these guys are the first enemies that really take advantage of that. And the different enemy and boss types foreshadow abilities you'll get later, which is super cool. And the level design of Tomasi's boss arena is something even reflected in most areas of the game, offering good cover, plenty of verticality, and most importantly, tons of shit to throw around. The devs over at Remedy really wanted to have a lot of room for player expression, and it's shown exceptionally well in the way the arenas are laid out. And this is how you do an arena right, not just giving a big empty circle looking at you, Dark Souls, God of War, Jedi Survivor, so many games. Make an arena that we can interact with. That's fun. Anytime you see this light switch, it's guaranteed some trippy shit's about to go down.
Have we been here before?
The Ocean View Motel acts as a key to a lot of different locations throughout the game, both in a game sense, since there's always a puzzle to be solved here, and in a world sense because it's almost like a portal to places in the oldest house. The painting in front of the light switch is always of the place you're about to be, which is a very nice detail adding to the mystery of the strange world we find ourselves in.
It doesn't connect to any typical network. A direct line to the astral plane and the board.
I wonder what the roaming charges on calls to the astral plane are like. Probably out of this world. Okay, I'll see myself out.
These people know the secrets of the Bureau as well as I do. Some even better.
James McCaffrey lends his voice to Director Trench. Dude could be reading the damn dictionary and I'd listen to him. He's done voice work for a lot of Remedy titles and never fails to disappoint. He sounded like some hard-boiled detective. 9 shots in and on his 6-pack of cigarettes for the day, and I love it!
The only person you should fail is yourself.
Trench has a point here. Being in charge is hard, and there's a lot more riding on failure than just your own reputation and job. But choosing only to rely on himself is where he fails as the director, and is the direct cause of the events of the game, making him a great foil to Jesse, who frequently relies on help of others, and couldn't have gotten the Hiss outbreak under control without the help of people like Pope, Arish, and Ati. And upon returning to his office, his body has disappeared, possibly representing the fact that he's part of the hotline now.
I don't know. She might find out about you.
Jessie is constantly unsure about who to trust in the FBC, but she slowly opens up to all of them over the course of the game as she learns that most of the people around the Bureau are just trying to help. You know I love me some center framing. And the music here is so ominous, telling us the maintenance sector is probably worse off than our main floor. It is.
This building, the Bureau headquarters, the oldest house, is a shifting place.
That's putting it lightly. The oldest house is an interesting place. Its walls and floors shift seemingly at random. The places most affected by the hiss are blocked off as if to keep them contained, and the place came with a free janitor. Alive is the best way to describe it, and in the world of Control, that's honestly not the weirdest thing we've seen. It's so much more mundane than a New York City skyscraper, yet to everyone that passes by it, it's just another building.
You think there's a dog buried in this?
Ati is great. He's always cursing and speaking in Finnish idioms and proverbs. And once again, hearing her thoughts. There's no real answer on who or what Ati is, but there are hints at what he might be. He was present when the oldest house was discovered, so he could be an object of power like many of the items here, or could be the embodiment of the oldest house itself. He's generally helpful and maintains the building, so that tracks. Or, in Finnish mythology, there is a water god named Ati, but I couldn't find many similarities outside of the names. Although he does seem to know Thor and Odin, the band, the old gods of Asgard from Alan Wake, but that's a whole nother Remedyverse meta that we'll get into later.
But don't you worry. I've left you clear instructions.
For some reason, I think we have different definitions of clear. I'm still stuck on not being yesterday's grouse's son, which is apparently akin to saying I wasn't born yesterday.
You'll take care of it, and soon this crisis gonna be last winter's snow.
And Ati's a bro. He's so confident that Jesse will handle this.
The hiss? That's what we're calling him? That's catchy.
I love how everyone's just rolling with Jesse's name for him. Where would a third-person shooter be without some sort of exploding enemy? Gears has tickers, Dead Space has exploders, and Control has the charged, because they charge at you and they're charged with the hiss energy. All of the names of the enemies are so on the nose, and it just makes me chuckle. These little title cards that pop up when entering a new area are awesome, and it feels like walking into a new act of a movie. I love when games environments feel like real, working, believable places. It seems like such a little detail, but it adds to the immersion so much, especially in a game like Control, where the realism contrasts so well with the supernatural things happening around the Bureau. Using the service weapons as a key is one way of making sure that no one other than the director can use the really important stuff, showcasing the transforming nature of the weapon as well.
Oh, and 3, it's classified, so I shouldn't ask.
I feel like that's a pretty common rule around here.
I call her Polaris.
As Pope points out, Polaris is the name of a guiding star, the North Star, part of the Ursa Minor constellation, and due to its static place in the sky, it was used by ancient sailors to navigate the night, much like how Polaris guides Jessie through the inky blackness of the Hiss invasion, and even further, guiding her to the Bureau and her brother. It does make frequent use of full motion video throughout the game, and a lot of times seamlessly blended into the gameplay. Having the real people side by side with the in-game graphics contrasts the character models and surroundings, making things feel just not quite right, and gives that bizarre, uncanny valley feeling, which for a game like Control, I think is exactly what Remedy was going for. The alarm buzz is one of the most unsettling alerts I've ever heard. Consider me alarmed. And the sounds these guys make is equally unsettling. Speaking of that, the sound design of this game is next level. The sound designers at Remedy use so many unique techniques and instruments when making the sounds and music for Control, among them being an ultrasonic microphone for recording sounds outside of the range of human hearing, then toning them down to a level we can hear, creating some really unique alien sounds that we are just not used to. I think the most interesting thing they used, though, was the Aztec death whistle. We're not completely sure how it was used, but it's believed to have been used in combat to scare the opposing force. And after hearing what it sounds like, I can see why. That shit is the most terrifying sound I've ever heard. And if I had to hear it, so do y'all.
And he told you this through the hotline. Makes sense.
Everyone here is so unbothered by the crazy shit happening around them. For us, this would be horrifying. For them, it's just a day that ends with Y. These guys are easily the hardest enemies in the game. Not so bad when they're by themselves, but the Hiss are almost never alone. The Tempest, much like its name, is a storm of rocks and pain. They're dangerous at any range, accurate as a trained marksman, and hit you like you owe them money. Anything could be an altered item, even an indestructible rubber duck. Control will occasionally break up the madness with some light puzzles, and while most of the time they're fairly simple, it's a nice break from the fast-paced action of the rest of the game. And the puzzle design makes you feel great when you finally figure it out, sleuthing around the room for clues on how to finish them.
As much as I don't want to admit it, I'm the only one who can help.
Jessie is always conflicted between her duty as the director and saving her brother. She's confident in her abilities, but still feels vulnerable and unsure of herself. Jessie is sarcastic, smart, and just a little weird, and that's thanks to Courtney Hope's fantastic performance. Doing both the motion capture and voice acting, she does an amazing job bringing Jessie to life.
To a different kind of resonance. Hostile, viral, invasive.
Dr. Darling knew the invasion was coming and did everything he could to prepare for it. And speaking of great performances, Matthew Peretta portrays Jesus. What is the alliteration of this Gabriel? Who's Gabriel? We'll talk about that later. And for a guy who we never meet in game, he's easily one of my favorite characters. Dude is such a trip anytime he pops up. Sometimes it's funny and goofy. Other times he's telling us we're all gonna die. He's just a little quirky like that, and Matthew is no stranger to Remedy games, also lending his silky voice to our main man in Alan Wake. This slow pan up to the view of Black Rock Quarry was mind-blowing the first time I saw it and was so excited to experience it. The areas of the game so far have been fairly varied, but I was never expecting something like this. I feel like that happens a lot in later sections of the game. What really sets Control's gameplay apart from me is all the crazy abilities we receive throughout the game. They range from tossing objects with your mind to floating around like your Magneto in Marvel vs. Capcom, which, funny enough, is kind of how the devs wanted you to feel. When designing the powers, they said that they wanted you to feel like a superhero in a horror movie. Every ability feels impactful. Throw especially. The weird buzzing, whooshing sound it makes is so satisfying every time. Seize is probably the most impactful power you receive, allowing you to take control of an enemy. Using it on a stronger enemy type like the Elevated or Tempest can turn a fight around instantly. But if you want to challenge yourself, you can ignore most of them altogether. Throw and Levitate are the only required abilities to complete the story, and others come from side missions. They're pretty hard to miss though, so you don't have to worry about running past them. The ability upgrades are pretty simple for the most part, giving extra damage, more health, and more energy, but all of our telekinetic stuff has an extra tree that gives added benefits, like letting you throw your shield, seizing a second enemy, and most important, throwing big as shit! And there's a pretty wide range of weapon and personal mods to customize your tools of destruction, giving you faster siege speed, more damage during a levitate, or a closer spread on the shatter form. Every weapon form is solid, and I found myself struggling to decide on a single loadout, which I think is a testament to the care put into them. Remedy wanted them all to be useful, even the starting pistol. Most games you'd get something new and just toss it aside, but you could totally use nothing but that pistol for the entire game. Each weapon handles completely different, and each one serves its own purpose. Grip and Shatter are standard fare firearms, but something like a Pierce is pretty much a 50 cal sniper in the palm of your hand. It can go through enemies that cover in those pesky shields. And all these powers, weapons, and upgraded abilities flow together seamlessly, making combat a fucking blast. And the synergies between them is crazy and leaves a lot of room for player expression.
We're looking to get a room for the night. Hello?
Occasionally, people can be heard outside of the Ocean View Motel, implying that it isn't just some place in between dimensions, and maybe a real place somewhere in the world. Can't say I'd want to stay a night there, though.
Bad news is a hiss monster has decided to move in, so that's great.
Art is just so casual about that fact. Oh my god.
But we are just treading water here, and the hiss keep coming.
But that doesn't stop him from understanding the threat at hand. These things! They scared the fuck out of me when I first encountered them. All of the hiss seem to distort reality a bit when they get shot, with blurred vision and shimmering light. The distorted use that distortion to their advantage, hiding inside of it until they're close enough to let you out their blood-curdling scream. But if you pay close attention, you can see it moving around the room. The warped reality slowly getting closer. They're probably my favorite enemy design in the game. The Black Rock Quarry is absolutely breathtaking, and somehow still not my favorite area in the game. The skybox almost looks like a painting. It's so gorgeous. The nebulas, constellations, and northern lights make the place feel so far out of this world that it's hard to believe this is part of a skyscraper in New York. I can't help but think of Elden Ring's underground areas, and while it was equally unexpected beautifully there, I gotta give it to Control on this one.
Who's groomed to be the future director?
Setting up the polarity between Jesse and Dylan, and there's a lot of parallels, but we'll talk about that when we meet them.
Eventually, his power changed him.
Before finding out what really happened with Dylan, that raises a lot of questions about the nature of Polaris, making us second guess the one thing that we thought was trustworthy.
Stop calling me that. My enemies are my friends.
And Jessie is still struggling with her new duties as the director, especially after finding out what happens with her brother. Everything she thought was true is being put into question here. Something tells me he's not gonna be a friend, Jesse. And this frame is so ominous too, letting us know that Dylan is very much in the right, just like Marshall said. Remember I said you can hear the hiss whispering around most of the oldest house? And the containment sector, it is a defiant chant. But why is it stronger here? I feel like it might have to do with it being closer to Dylan, given his relationship to the hiss. Or maybe it's the amount of altered items here making it stronger. What do you guys think? This scared the f out of me the first time it happened. This is the first time at the motel, things don't seem quite right. Other than the whole, being transported to a supernatural motel in the middle of God knows where it'd be all. And we can never enter the room that the scream comes from, or the others on that side of the hall. I have so many questions about this motel that hopefully get answered in a sequel, because this place is weird, even for this game's standards.
We have hiss everywhere, numerous cell breaches, and system failures across the board, but you're the director, so here we go.
I love Langston. Dude is such a mess. Man looks like he hasn't slept in days and seems like he had no idea there was a new director. I could imagine as a supervisor of Panopticon, there's not a lot of time for fixing your crooked tie. The place is a powder keg on a good day.
Open the door, Langston.
All that talking, and the only thing she heard was her brother is there.
We tell first timers not to touch anything, so just do that.
He's probably so used to new recruits messing with things. He sounds so much like a dad telling his kids to leave things alone. The sheer scale of the Panopticon is insane. An 8-level containment center of altered items with only a single monitoring station. And it was inspired by a design created by 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. A circular prison designed to be watched by a single guard post with small windows, giving a feeling of constant surveillance. But French philosopher Michel Foucault questioned the Panopticon's design, bringing us back to the themes of control, freedom and control. The idea of the Panopticon is that of sheer control, almost to the point of omniscience. Foucault argued that constant observation limits one's freedom out of fear of discipline, even without knowing the observer, leading to new levels of control. And we see this theory reflected in the game as well. Actual Panopticon aside, the hiss is an unknowable, constantly spreading presence, threatening complete and total control of the FBC and its members, growing stronger and more people it forces under its control. And Polaris represents the freedom of choice and of mind. It guides Jessie, but she doesn't make any decisions out of fear and has the freedom to choose her own path. When you're watching TV and the psychedelics kick in, the art design of this game goes so hard. The world can go from a mundane office building to a giant prison spire or a quarry that looks like it's floating in the cosmos. The areas are so much more varied than I ever would have expected. Granted, I honestly didn't exactly know what to expect. Remedy said that the art design is inspired by brutalist architecture, identified by its boxy, concrete minimalism, and that architecture makes the world feel almost normal until the walls start spinning and you walk into the astral plane. The devs call it chaos and order clashing, and that is the best description there is for Control. I was always on the edge of my seat, excited to see what place the game would take me next. I really like the red lighting illuminating the destroyed cell, letting us know Dylan has been conflicted by the Hiss in some way. Remedy uses color a lot to represent both the Hiss and Polaris, which makes sense given their dualistic natures. For the Hiss, they use many deep reds, which can be used to represent anger, and black, which they can use for oppression and control, while Polaris is shown with lighter blues, meant to calm, and white for freedom and clarity. And that really highlights how similar yet opposite Polaris and the Hiss are.
It's genetic. He was a prime candidate.
Jessie was also a prime candidate, but she was free while Dylan was imprisoned, drawing a lot of parallels between the two, further playing on the idea of freedom and control.
You walk into control. We stand around you while you train. You can almost hear our words, but you forget.
Well, that's not creepy at all.
Not Dylan. Trench and Darling made sure of that.
Dylan was taken away at a very young age. The events of Ordinary and his imprisonment surely had very lasting effects on his mind, after all the years under the Bureau's control and all the testing. I can't imagine he'd feel like the same person he was going in. While Jessie was monitored by the FBC, she was free to live and make her life choices on her own, instead of being forced into the role of director like Dylan was. And even after Darling and Trench are gone, he's found himself in a kind of imprisonment. He's a perfect foil for Jessie. He acts as a sort of vessel for the Hiss in the same way Jessie does for Polaris. And this returns to Foucault's point about constant surveillance. Confinement has become so comfortable for Dylan after 17 years, that the Hiss is just another warden in the prison of his mind, and being controlled is just a part of living.
But she didn't help when Trench took me away.
Dylan giving himself up to the Hiss really shows how much he resents Jessie for leaving him, and what the Bureau did to him. And it being his choice makes it that much heavier now that Jessie is trying to help him. Jessie, also being a prime candidate while still being given her normal freedoms and being unaware of the FBC monitoring her, allowed her to grow into her own person and better be able to fill the role of the director.
Different one, sure, but both in a cell of some sort.
Even Jessie recognizes the parallels. And even as the director, she recognizes that she still may be in a cell of sorts, shackled by the role she's unknowingly being molded for and unsure of how to move forward. And that feeling is just real in the real world. It's easy to feel like you're held captive by our daily lives, being forced to work a job you hate just to barely scrape by, or feeling like you have to live up to some impossible standard. Your mind can be just as much of a prison as a real one, and it's when you leave that cell that you're truly free. Being a prisoner in your own mind is no way to live, and it took me far too long to understand it, and even longer to drag myself out of it. So take that new job, start a new hobby, or write that book you wanted to write. Do something that you feel like you can't or shouldn't do. Do what makes you feel good, and most importantly, take those risks. Don't let the world tell you what makes you happy. Live your own happiness. Don't live by an algorithm, and surround yourself with people that care about you and help you grow. I really enjoy the symbolism here. Besides the altar item, Jessie's childhood home is the only thing that matters in the town of the Bureau's eyes. And the fight here isn't really anything special, just some enemies and a mini-boss, but it's such a memorable arena to fight in. I loved watching the little buildings crumble as the fight progressed.
Last time we talked. By Thomas Zane? Yes.
So there have been little Easter eggs throughout the game alluding to other Remedy games. But in Remedy games, they're not necessarily Easter eggs, as they all occur the same up world/multiverse, and all of their games take place in the year they're released, so it's been actually 9 years since the events of Alan Wake. In the Panopticon, you can find altered items from Alan Wake's story, and Thomas Zane is connected to Wake in some way, even though the answer isn't super clear on how. And the AWE DLC ties the worlds of Control and Alan Wake even closer together. There's even a tease to the story of Alan Wake 2 in the end of the DLC, telling us that the events of the original game aren't the end of our adventures in Bright Falls. And you guys don't want to miss the Alan Wake 2 video, so make sure you subscribe because he's already working on it. What do I mean? Stay till the end. I love that they just moved the entire landfill. Seems like there's better ways to handle that, but what do I know? You could reach the ashtray maze pretty early in the game, but until you've got Ati's tape player, the maze will loop into itself forever. And that left me so invested in what role that place could play, because there's no way such an interesting area isn't somehow important. Oh boy, let me tell you, this place has left a lasting imprint on my mind, but more on that soon. I feel like Ati's janitor supplies being here hints at the fact that we'll be needing his help to get through the maze. In most games, I wouldn't think twice about something like this, but Remedy really cares about those little details.
Assistant will keep work in the glove and the house standing.
Ati just comes off as some crazy foreign grandpa. A paranatural possible god grandpa, but a grandpa nonetheless. I never knew the significance of this painting until recently playing Alan Wake 2, but after reviewing footage, I recognized both this old man and that house. Well, it's actually a sauna. But it blows my mind that they tease something as small as this 4 years before their next game. And Ati has his own room at the Ocean View, raising so many more questions. He's obviously very powerful, but he acts more as a guide. And I mentioned earlier that he shares a name with a Finnish water god. With how much he talks about water and the fact that he's a janitor, that idea tracks. There's a lot of allusion to who and what he might be, but no real confirmation. But I really appreciate the mystery surrounding him and that we don't get answers. And I'd love to see his character explored more. Lois, you have a car, ever. But that's what makes the fight. Waiting on it to show up super intense, which is a win in my book. Like the title of our mission, this song is a Finnish tango called Sankarin Tango, which were very popular in Finland during the 1940s. It was composed by Petri Alanko and performed by none other than Ati's voice actor, Martin Suunsalo. Dude could do it all, and on top of being a beautiful place, Sankarin means hero, and the lyrics are about the hero's journey. And while they could be referring to our hero Jess, I feel like they apply more to Alan Wake. The song talks about the dark ocean's shadows and searching this way to light, two very prominent themes in Alan Wake, and much like all the tangos it repeats, which is a whole nother layer of Alan Wake's story that we don't have time to get into right now. I'm getting off track, let's move on. Interesting place for a vacation, Ati. And we're given a vision of a forest here, possibly implying these are different world trees. With the amount of inspiration for Finnish and Norse mythology in the game, it's not too far-fetched and plays into this multiverse idea. Then visions of water. I'm pretty convinced this dude is a sea god.
Did you have fish in your song?
What? He's just asking if we were scared. His Finnish phrases are goofy as hell and I love them.
The song is a present from my friends to you.
His friends he's referring to are the old gods of Asgard, the rock band from Alan Wake, which adds about 27 new questions to the ever-growing pile. Take control. Only Remedy could weave such a cheesy idea for a song into the game and make it one of the most memorable gaming moments in the last 5 years. The song is performed by the old gods of Asgard, but they're actually a real band as well, called Poets of the Fall, and they've contributed their music to so many Remedy titles, all the way back to the Max Payne days. Between the poets and so many of the in-game actors, Sam like really just be putting all his friends in his games, and I respect that. Uplift the people that helped you get where you are so everyone succeeds. It's something we need to see more of. If you like rock, definitely check them out. They're solid. The maze is constantly changing, whether it's moving floors, melting walls, or the path suddenly closing on you. If they were trying to simulate a mushroom trip, they did one hell of a job. The hotel that is the Ashtray Maze is actually inspired by the 90s psychological thriller Barton Fink. Down to the shoes outside of the doors. The maze is almost a one-to-one recreation. And with the nature of the oldest house, the maze could even possibly be the Hotel Earl from the film. They just had to put up new wallpaper. This part of the song is spoken backwards, and there's actually a sequence of numbers it is used to open a couple of secret rooms later, which is not something I was expecting to find looking up whenever I was doing research here. And they weave the narrative of the game and Jesse's past into lyrics of the song, starting off singing about the town of Ordinary, some events at the Bureau, and the uncertainty the future holds. Who will take control? Probably referring to Dylan and the Hiss versus Jesse and Polaris. This moment would have been great without the meta-narrative buried into it, and it's even better because of it. And this section just makes you feel invincible. I mean, who wouldn't like their own personal hype track?
That was awesome.
Couldn't have set up better myself, Jesse. The Ashtray Maze is easily one of the most memorable moments in the game, and my favorite section. It came out of nowhere and left a lasting impression. Remedy has done music theme sections before, like in the first Alan Wake, but this one stands out as a unique experience, for a Remedy title and as a game in general. Anakin would hate it here.
It's coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere.
Those pillars are ominous as fuck, and they kind of look like a hand reaching up out of the sand. All the shapes we've been using for passwords were all designed after Hedron. They really did use it as a basis for so many things around the Bureau. Polaris and Hedron both come from Slidescape 36, but may or may not have been the same creature. After all, when Hedron dies, Polaris stays with Jesse, but there may have been a deeper meaning to Hedron, since Hedron literally means the faces of a geometric shape. Maybe Polaris was born from Hedron, or maybe it's one of Hedron's faces. And if either of those are true, maybe this is just another facet of Hedron, and each piece is trying to gain control. There's so much in the game left as a mystery and up to interpretation, and I kind of love that.
I've been shown so much.
Exposing himself to Hedron. Quite literally. Put some clothes on, bro. He gained insight with that madman's knowledge he learned, adding some layers of Lovecraftian horror to the game. But in the FBC, I'm sure discovering some eldritch horror beyond comprehension disguised as a fridge is just another day that ends in a Y afternoon for them. We had to get in, but that giant HRA was the only thing keeping the Hiss out, actually giving it exactly what it wanted.
And there's nothing there.
Among all of the references Remedy makes, they frequently return to Shawshank Redemption, the poster representing our control of reality. Behind it is the secrets being kept from us. In Shawshank, Andy is wrongfully imprisoned, the poster being the only thing between his newfound reality and freedom. and Control, the poster, is a metaphor for the FBC, hiding the paranatural from the world. And in this moment, Jesse's poster is ripped down with nothing behind it except a wall, where there should have been a hole leading to another revelation. Everything she's been working towards has been ripped out from under her. Her brother, taken by the hiss, and now Polaris Hedron as well, and she has no sense of where to go because of it. And with Polaris gone, she is now susceptible to the hiss, almost giving in to their control. The fake credits got me here. I was a little disappointed that was the end, but when I noticed some of the names aren't names, saying things like leave now, and eventually turning into the monologue, the hiss was speaking through Dylan, and when we first meet him until he becomes distorted and unreadable. And then we wake up in a normal office, no longer the director, but an intern delivering mail, cleaning up the office and scanning documents. Moments ago, we were blasting hiss and mourning our friend. There's no context as to why we're here and seemingly no way out. I feel like this was the hiss trying to break Jesse's mind. The employees will insult you upon completing your task. The objectives will just reset until we find our boy Ati, here to guide us along in the right direction, like he has the whole game. And the more and more times we go through the loop, and more office workers start becoming the hiss, either representing the hiss gaining more control of Jesse, or Jesse gaining more control and realizing this is just a nightmare caused by the hiss.
First, he turned on the projector. He let them in.
Dylan being the one to kill Trench makes a lot of sense, because why would the hiss kill their host when the goal is to overtake the Bureau? It's possible Trench had a moment of clarity and decided that he couldn't live with his failure as a director, but from what we've seen, the hiss doesn't let go of people easy. And Dylan being the one who killed Trench makes him giving himself up to them hit a lot harder. They spent a long time grooming him to take the director's place, and he almost took it. All of the floating bodies turn into Jesse after leaving the director's office. They may be hallucinations created by the hiss, or maybe they're versions of Jesse that didn't escape the hiss's fueled nightmare. No puzzles or anything to solve this time, just Key and Darling being a silly little guy. Polaris taking the form of Jesse has a lot of weight to it. While Polaris was real and helping Jesse, she's the one who did all the things getting them to where they need to be. Much like Ati, Polaris was just guiding her along the right path. It's up to Jesse to take action. Polaris assuming her form to speak to her almost feels like Polaris telling her, "We got here because of your strength and will to persevere." And that is a powerful message. Each one of us is a narrator in our own stories, and how you choose to live your life is only up to you to decide. Well, it took a lot to get here. With the revelation Polaris just gave her, she finally comes into her own as the director. Come to find out, there was another poster behind that one. The future is still uncertain, but she has a newfound confidence, no longer questioning the path forward because she decides how to proceed, and is in control of her life. We went through our little anime self-realization arc, now we get the payoff. Giving us a little power boost at the end to match the strength of the hiss really adds to the superhero fantasy. Giving the entire astral plane a red glow really shows us what's at stake here. If Jesse fucks up, it's game over. The hiss have reached the board, and who knows what would happen if they win. Nothing good for sure. And cleansing the hiss from Dylan shows how far Jesse has come over the course of the game. In the beginning, she struggled to even cleanse someone affected by it, and now she's gained a lot of power and confidence. Alright. Control. This game was a trip in the best way possible. I originally played it when it was nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards in 2019, which it didn't win, but 2019 had some stiff competition. Sekiro. That said, Control is just as much a masterpiece in its own right. Sure, there are some bugs here and there, but nothing to bring down the quality of the finished product, or the vision this game set out to achieve. Remedy games have always been a bit out there with their narratives, and Control is no different. It's weird, it's strange, and it's difficult to understand at times, but that all lends itself to the unique charm that the game has. The gameplay is phenomenal. With the weapons and abilities flowing together seamlessly, the throw ability is always satisfying, and combat is just difficult enough to keep you on your toes. The level and art design is out of this world, going from the normal office building to the Black Rock Quarry and the Ashtray Maze. The Ashtray Maze is easily one of the most memorable moments in the gaming history. It wasn't like anything I experienced before, and coming back to this game after 4 years, it was the moment I was looking forward to the most replaying this game. And the big one, the narrative. Sam Lake and company over at Remedy really seemed to catch their stride with this game. I adore the original Alan Wake and the Max Payne games, but I think Control is where they really found their niche. No other company produces games quite like Remedy does. They got a unique sense of humor, twists that even Odin himself wouldn't see coming, and they never stop surprising me with new ideas. Not to mention all the different inspirations they use to present their themes. The main theme of the game being about freedom and the consequences and effects of one's freedom while under control by unknown forces. With very real-life parallels, like the idea of the Panopticon and all-seeing, all-knowing prison, it causes inmates to behave out of fear or punishment. But in that fear, complacency can grow and personal growth can stagnate, allowing those in power to find new levels of control, and those being monitored having an even lower quality of life. Having free thought and decisions is what makes us human. Having the free will to do whatever we set our minds to is a beautiful thing, and having that taken away can be soul-crushing. In the absence of light, a flower never blooms. So if you're unsure if you want to apply for that new job, study a new degree, or start that new YouTube, well, just do it. Seize that opportunity. Because even if you fail, You still tried, and hopefully have the freedom to try again and learn from it. Control used so much inspiration from things like Shawshank Redemption to historical philosophers. I had an awesome time doing research for this video. Every rabbit hole was like a branching tree of Yggdrasil that all intersected, and it was so enjoyable slowly peeling back the layers of this game. I'm sure that I missed a ton of things, and that you guys can even replay this and get all new meanings yourself, so please still play this game. And if you're wondering who Gabe is, I would like to welcome a new member to the GamingWins family, my friend Gabe. He's been helping create scripts for these videos on games that I don't have time to cover myself. For the keen-eyed of you, you might have noticed he was the writer for Dead Space, Resident Evil 2, 3, and now this video as well. He also co-wrote the Dark Souls video with me and actually helped me write the very first video on this channel. I'm so excited to be working together with him again, as without him, y'all wouldn't be getting an Alan Wake 2 video here in a couple weeks. So everyone give him a warm welcome, and remember, drive the speed limit, drink some water, and love one another. Pizza.